Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin. From wins, losses, horror stories, and tactics for optimizing your business, Mike and Dan take a real, uncensored deep dive into the ins and outs of running a full-time real estate investment and wholesaling business. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 52 of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the first, Mike and Dan episode for a little while, as we've been rocking through interviews for the past, month, because I was off fucking around in Africa.
Yeah.
Well, Dan was here trying to manage the business, and let's see, things that have changed while I've been gone so far. Dan is now back in a corporate workplace.
I'm freaking jacked. Wait, that's not the first thing you say. I'm freaking jacked now. You just told me I was looking trim. Things have changed in the month.
Trim.
I'm healthy.
Bought all your clothes at Baby Gap, so you're looking extra buff now.
Dude, especially on camera, it adds 10 pounds in the shirt. You can't even see. Oh, there you see my muscle there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you want to see Dan's muscles, go check out this video on YouTube.
Yeah,
they're be severely disappointed. Be very disappointed, I promise.
Yeah, I know you're all fat too from being on vacation for a month. So we're gonna go have our lifting competition this year.
No. The crazy thing is just with the nature of my trip. So.
Oh, you're in Africa. That's right. They don't have food.
Yeah, so
they're starving.
Hey, the food everywhere was fantastic.
I would imagine. So,
it's all fresh, right? Because they make everything there. It's not like they have a ton of imports that they're bringing in from all over the place, or a ton of preservatives, so everything's fresh. But yeah, for you guys that weren't around before I left, I don't even know if I've talked about this trip. So I did about 3.5 week road trip around southern Africa, which me and my wife, it took us from Cape Town up through Johannesburg and Kruger National Park, up through Zimbabwe to Victoria Falls, and then heading out west through Botswana and finishing in Namibia. Bunch of camping and safari parks, through all that stuff. Bunch of, adventure activities. We went whitewater rafting on the Zambezi, and some bungee jumping, rode four-wheelers. It's a bunch of tourist stuff mixed in with a lot of cultural stuff. But, it's one of those trips. It's always fascinating for me to go places like that as a American, because we just have so little perspective on the world. Honestly,
right.
All the stuff that we get force fed by the media is such horse shit about this is what third world countries look like. Look, these are all the movies about Africa. This is what Africa looks like.
Wait. Are you saying that my 30 cents a day is not going to little babies with bloated bellies?
No, it might be somewhere, but that is not the vast majority of Africa. A lot of Africa is actually pretty developed and pretty nice, but they have third world problems, massive wealth inequality, limited infrastructure. But for the most part, most places have good plumbing. You can drink the water in most places that we went. They all have power.
That's surprising.
Even though they live in shacks, a lot of people have smartphones and decent cars. They'll have a Toyota that's 15 years old, but they live in a mud hut. It's just
dude, it's because you didn't go to the right part of Africa. You got to go Rwanda or the Republic of Congo.
So you're right. So there are countries that are like that, and where we went is the more developed Africa. So one of
the rich white guy real estate investor part of Africa.
They're definitely not a white guy real estate investor, because we were a major minority everywhere we went. But they are more traditional because they do have tourism, so there is some money coming there. But we met someone that had just gone up through Rwanda and Uganda to see the gorillas and stuff, and he was like, "No, that's third world Africa. That's
really?
Super bad."
Were the gorillas cool at least?
Oh yeah, he said they were awesome. He's like, "But you're in the true sticks, where people are crazy, crazy poor." But then I don't know, it's funny talking to even some of the locals about the different areas. We had a driver that took us from our the last camp that we were staying in all the way to the airport that we left from. It was a 5-hour drive. We had to leave at 3:30 in the morning. And I was talking to him, and I was like, "Oh, have you traveled much around Africa being a driver?" And he's like, "Well, I've lived in South Africa, Zimbabwe, where he was from, Zambia, and then Botswana, and maybe the same sort of areas that we went." And he's like, "Oh, and I went to the Congo." And I was like, what was it like in the Congo? He's like, don't ever go there. He's like, it always rains. He said everyone's sad because it always rains and there's always war. Don't go there.
Oh my goodness. That's a bummer.
I was like, good advice. I never going to the Congo.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of one thing like I've thought about, because I think it would be. I'm definitely jealous. I wish I had an opportunity to go to Africa, but like the Congo, for some reason, maybe from the movies, it sticks in my head, and then like West Africa, like the Gold Coast, for some reason, like scares me just with like disease. So I'm like, those are the two spots I might stay away from.
Well, the West is where all the conflict is as well. Right. So like talking to a lot of people about the different parts of it. I mean, 'cause it's like a huge continent, right? Like,
right.
You know, thinking that Africa is all like one thing and it's all like, you know, different safety standards, like saying, oh, North America is all the same. It's like, well, we obviously know that safety is very different in the United States versus like Mexico. You know,
right.
You go somewhere in rural Mexico, you're much more likely to get killed versus going, you know, by the cartel versus going most places in Africa, I would think. Right. But, you know, there's probably places though that are very similar, and Western Africa right now is where a lot of the conflict zones are through a lot of those countries. But, you know, it's just something that is part of their whole history. I mean, ironically enough, on the flight back, we got on the plane and we're like, oh, they have Blood Diamond on the airplane. We have to watch this now. Yeah.
No way. Okay, because you were business, so you could choose what movie.
Yeah, we were business class. You choose movies and coach anyway. But they have Blood Diamond. We're like, oh, we gotta watch this now, and you know, it was. Like that is how most people view Africa, which is like this like war torn sort of place and all sorts of things, which exists in parts of it. But in the movie, the guy's like, he's like in the history of Africa, every time something of value is discovered, the locals die. And I'm like, that is probably the really horrible truth. And then even a lot of places that we went, even though they're good now, they weren't that good that long ago. You know, like when we were in Namibia, it's a crazy place because most of the country's like this huge desert. And like you know, rolling sand dunes like right out you see out of a movie, and it was colonized by the Germans. And I guess back even as recent as like the 50s, the Germans had like diamond camps there. And what they would do is they would have like all of their workers, which basically means, you know, slaves. And what they would do, because the diamonds were so abundant, is they would just have them like army crawl through the sand, and they would just like find diamonds.
That's amazing.
It's just unbelievable, right? But now it's, you know, after the Germans, they got taken over by South Africa. They went and like conquered it, and then it was under apartheid rule up until it was finally liberated from that in like 94. And now it's like more of a put together place. But 94 isn't that long ago, man. It's 25 years ago.
No, I was 9 years old. Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you see any, did you get to swim with the sharks at least, or did it sound like you did?
No, we didn't even get to go swimming with the sharks. We were supposed to go swimming with the great whites in South Africa, but because the weather got canceled. So instead, it was actually pretty sick. There was the Rugby Sevens World Cup, just happened to be in Cape Town, and we managed to snag some tickets. So we just went and to like, you know, the Rugby Sevens World Cup in probably one of the biggest rugby countries in the world. And which was a super cool experience. We went with all these drunk rugby fans, and I drank the traditional local drink of brandy and Coca-Cola, which you can get out of a can there. It's like incredibly sweet. Yeah, so just drank a bunch of those and had a little party and watched some rugby. It was a good time.
Nice. Well, here's the one question that everybody wants to hear is like, did you see Elon Musk there or talk to anybody about Elon Musk there? Because he is from South Africa.
Elon Musk is a big deal in South Africa.
Is he?
Like, oh yeah, like you go around different things. There's a lot of like Elon Musk like books and like random things.
I bet, because he's probably the hometown. I mean, he's the richest man in the world.
Yeah,
from Africa.
Well, countries like that, you know, they don't have a ton of like big people that come out of them. So when they do, they really like cherish them. And I guess the big person a few years ago, well, obviously Elon Musk has always been big, but Trevor Noah, you know, has like the Daily Show, his stand-up comic, super popular. We're talking to our guy that was there, and he's like, oh yeah, Trevor Noah used to be so huge in South Africa, but then he went to the United States and he lost touch with all of us, so now everyone hates him.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah,
he's a scab. He sold out.
Yeah, he's a scab. Well, also David Sachs, who is Elon Musk's partner, I think, or was Elon Musk's partner in PayPal. He's also, I think he's one of the hosts on All In podcast. Great podcast, by the way. Not as good as Collecting Keys, but it's a good podcast. He's from South Africa. It's lots of smart people from South Africa.
I mean,
So
it's
I'm
like a
hoping
proper
you brought that
country. Like
back.
they have like good schools. I mean, they
Oh,
have
I
developments,
believe
a lot
that.
of
I'm
stuff
just
that goes
saying,
on.
like
Yeah.
in comparison to the rest of the world, to have
Yeah.
some pretty high-powered people coming from a small portion is
Yeah,
impressive.
well, so I guess what I will say there, what we learned is there are very first world cities in what is a very third world country. Because, like, you go to the main cities and they're super developed,
Mm,
and, the people, mainly the white people that were, benefited during the apartheid era, have a lot of money and they can get good education and they can have a lot of development. But around those areas is what you would expect Africa, which is a lot
right.
of like local native communities. Um, that are like super rural where they
Mm,
have, not a lot going on. So,
right.
but yeah, either way, super good experience. If anyone is an adventure traveler and they like to go to places that, make you reflect on life and everything else, I would highly recommend making a trip. It's a long freaking journey to get there, but once you get there, it is not expensive. It's generally pretty easy to get around. And everyone is super nice and accommodating with everywhere we went. Even stuff that wasn't transactional, like we weren't, paying people to
Mm,
do things. The locals in general were super, super nice and just stoked to
nice.
chat with you about ever engage. So it's a super awesome experience. But anyway,
No,
real estate stuff.
yeah.
I know
Well, welcome back.
you had
Welcome
fun.
back.
Yeah, thank you. While I was gone, we bought 26 properties. So I think we had our best month that we've ever had. And our gross revenue was about 700,000. Is that right?
Man, you don't have to lie to our listeners. We did some
Hey,
grinding. We did some hustle. We did some grinding while you were gone. It wasn't that easy on all fronts, but we made it work. We made some money. We sold some deals. We
yeah.
did it. Did we buy anything? I don't think we
We
closed on
got
anything.
didn't close anything. We had a contract or two. Actually, no, we closed the Helen Keller house closed.
Oh yeah, but we didn't buy it. We didn't like.
We
Yeah,
didn't buy it. We
we did not
wholesaled
buy
it.
that one. Yeah, and then it quickly caught fire. So sorry to our buyer on that one. Apologize. Did
I mean,
not plan for that to happen.
you can't make that up though,
Yeah,
man. Like literally, we
yeah,
wholesaled this house, and then was it 4 days later? The
yeah.
guy he texted us. He was like, "You guys will never believe what happened."
Well, no. So it was 2 weeks after he bought it, but the
Was it
thing
two weeks? That was that long?
It happened like 4 days after he closed on it. But the
Ugh.
seller who was still living in the house never told him. And I was like, "What happened?" He's like, "I have no idea. I can't get a hold of her." I was like, "Oh my god,
Oh my
dude,
god.
so crazy, crazy." Yeah, that's
So
kind of how it's all the sellers have been lately, just a little wild, a little crazy. But no, we haven't bought anything for ourselves lately. We've wholesaled, but that'll be kind of hopefully what we can look forward to is finding some good properties to stabilize and make some cash flow.
well, maybe. I mean, we're in the traditional part right now of this business. Is so challenging where it's just like the constant cash flow problem
Hmm.
because we have several deals that got delayed because of different things
Yeah,
like
we
not
have
being able to
one
find
deal that's
buyers
still
was a big
delayed.
thing.
We have one deal that's been like 6, 7, 8 months. Uh,
Yeah,
that's going to be a great deal, but it's delayed.
but it's a
Right?
probate deal, yeah. And then we had several ones that we had longer closings on because we were having trouble finding buyers with the current market conditions, which we have three of them closing this
Mhm.
month, hopefully, which would be $50,000 or so in revenue we're
Right? Yeah.
figuring.
Yep.
Um, so we got those ones. We have a bunch of virtual ones that are maybe lining up, maybe not. We have buyers getting skittish on stuff for something like I don't know why rates got over 7%, and I guess that might be the mental breaking point for people like when they
Seven
see
percent
that.
was the breaking point.
I
Yeah, yeah,
guess.
you're right. Well, even some sellers, we've had sellers be like, "No, I just don't think I'm going to sell anymore." It's like, well, but we're in a contract, and
I know.
so we've had that happen in our virtual market. So it's definitely a numbers game in that if you have 10 contracts, it doesn't mean 10 things are going to close.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's always like you can't count the chickens before they're hatched, but I don't know. I appreciate you holding down the ship while I was gone, though. But I mean, it was a good test of just like our general systems, and it revealed, I think, a lot of the flaws and stuff that we need to figure out. Because traditionally, when I've traveled, we've done pretty well, but I've also been able to have like some say. But on this, because
Mhm.
I was like literally out in the sticks, like there was at least one full week where I had no internet access the entire time. Which
Mhm.
at first I was like super stressed for like a day, and then I was like, this is awesome.
Right.
There's no news. There's no like emails. There's no
It's just
anything.
you and the people around you and the world in front of you. That's super cool.
But you know what the weird thing is? Even when it was like that, like I would like, I don't know, go to take a dump and I would have my phone and I would still look at like my cached Instagram posts that were like from like 4 days earlier that were still there. They're like instinctually
coming off of a high. You're like, I gotta get a hit. I know I've seen this post 12 times.
Well, the funny thing is, it was like just purely habitual. You don't even think about it.
Yeah, no, I get you. I got you. That's funny. So, yeah, but for that week, the business did keep turning. We made it work.
Made it work for the most part, but revealed the places we need to fill some gaps, particularly on the admin side, which I think is the area that we've always struggled to fill. It's just because we're so used to doing it, but there's like certain things that need to be documented better. Like even one of the like that week, I went back, checked all of it, and I was like, why were our KPIs not updated? Just like super basic stuff. So whether I hit up our VA, and he's like, oh, I didn't know I need to do that every single week, and I was like.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, like, of course you do. Like, what the fuck?
Well, that's what's interesting too. You talk about like the admin stuff is like we have a lot of admin-esque type employees, but none of them are jack of all trade. Like we don't have that. It's hard to have that one person that can consistently do an array of tasks.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we do have a lot of different admin tasks, and this is kind of the challenge with a small business because, like, I don't know, you don't have an admin at your W-2 if they're just like an admin. They're not doing like graphic design and also and also filing reports and also doing like whatever. Like they usually have someone for a specific job, which you can have a bunch of redundancies when you're at a giant company, but when you're a small company, you can't have that.
Right.
So it makes it a little bit more challenging. But there's always little things. But I think the biggest thing that I realized while I was gone with like the sort of hiccups we have is how bad we are about having documentation of processes, just like in general. I mean, it's been difficult. It's one of those things that we should have done way back when we started and sort of maintained, which we have like, if you look at our Google Drive, we have about 50 iterations of this that we've started and then just never maintained or like never updated or never finished like, oh, this is like our key operating procedures. And then it's like, step 1, create the operating procedures. And then that's as far as we got,
Well, in our defense, however, like because our operating procedures have changed a shit ton, we would have been only documenting processes for this whole time. And I think that's inherently a challenge because we have adapted our business as the market changes, and as our business has grown and build out those iterations, we just adapt and overcome, and to have a standard process that whole time. Like you and I know, like a lot of the OG wholesalers aren't in the market today because they didn't adapt. They figure out how to do it one way. And then they're like, well, I'm not going to figure out how to do it that way. So I guess I'm done, or I'm going to pivot, which is fine. They pivot and go do something else, where we've had to, because I feel like the market has been evolving and changing so rapidly since we even started that we've just always had to adapt and then like adjust our business to just keep up with what's going on.
Yeah, that is very true. And I mean, there's still some things that have remained the same, particularly with like how we do our marketing and like how we track certain things and all that sort of stuff, which we do ourselves just because we kind of always have that is stuff that we need to document and upload. But I'll say that's a good takeaway though for anyone, regardless of whether you have an investment business or you have any other business. When you're doing stuff for the get-go, at the get-go, like when you're first starting and you're figuring out your general processes, even if you do think you're going to change it at some point, just record yourself doing it on a Loom video so that like you can go and you can take that video and you can give it to a VA and be like, this is exactly what I need you to do. And that way, just keep them in a catalog with what they all are, or like, even on Loom, you can kind of put together folders, things like that. And you will be so thankful that you have that when you go to bring on your first VA or another VA or even like an in-house assistant, whatever. And you're like, oh, I need you to do all these different things. And you quickly realize, shit, there's 50 things I need them to do. And I have to figure out how to explain all of them when they're in my head, when you could have just recorded yourself doing it like as you were going, instead of at that point, you now have to spend 2 days recording a bunch of videos and it's a hellish experience.
Yep.
So.
No, I agree. I've been doing that personally too, is anytime I'm doing something, as we brought on another executive assistant this last month, is like, I'm going to do this task because I have to right now, but I'm going to record it and then send that person a Loom video. Be like, this is what you're going to do now. Next time I send this task to you, boom, here's a Loom video. And I have her keeping a spreadsheet or a document, like a Google Doc with like all the how-tos with links to the Loom videos, because like that is so much easier to at least document it one time and get it out.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And once you have put together, even if you just need to create different iterations of it, add it right on, because you could have like the newest, latest, and greatest thing that you think is how you're going to be, and you do it for 2 months. Like, this actually sucks. Let's go back to the other way. We've done that for a while. We spent 2 months integrating everything into a new CRM, and then went, this is a horrible idea.
That was
and
so
then
painful.
Converted back. And then the crazy thing is, I remember way back when we're like, oh, well, do we cancel the old CRM now? And the only reason that I didn't was purely out of laziness. And thank God I didn't do that, because we would have had to restart it up.
Oh, man. Yes, because we imported our leads, right? And then we did. We had to come back, and then it came back such a shit show, too. What a mess. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Man. So, give things time. Don't be too impulsive, and just keep tracking as much as you can. But, yeah, I mean, besides all that, need to be going all over. We've had our one active flip that we've going on right now. I know has been super, super fun for you.
Yeah, we're getting to the end of that. I got the photos. I haven't listed it yet. It's kind of funny how that works out, but I finally got the photos
look
on.
Great.
Yeah, it's nice. It's clean. We had, I would say on this one, which I've complained about doing this flip since the beginning. I haven't wanted to do it just because it's such a big It was a big project with the potential to have some open wounds on it.
Yeah. And then the seller being just a real piece of work the entire time. It didn't make it any better.
Yeah,
this was the one where we had the seller. Yeah, we had the seller that we bailed them out of the situation. They were like literally in foreclosure. And then we agreed to give them 1 month free back, and then they had to pay rent for 2 months. And pretty much the second we bought it, she immediately submitted a maintenance request for a bunch of stuff. And we were like, no, get the fuck out of the house. Yeah. What are you doing? And then she got super shitty that we didn't go in and fix all these things. And I will also say the main reason we didn't fix it was the stuff was not essential, and we were planning to gut the house when she moved out anyway. And then after she paid us 1 month of rent, didn't pay us another month of rent, we filed an eviction notice because she was starting to get shady, and then she dragged it on and stayed there for another month while I went through the full eviction process. And then made me go through mediation and all these sort of things. And she literally sat there and wept on the phone with the mediator and was like, are you honestly telling me you're going to kick us out? And I was like, yes.
Just cold-blooded.
Oh my God. At that point I was so over it, especially because she was such a snake.
She was a snake.
She'd be so bad on the phone, so freaking rude. And then the second she knew she was in trouble, she was trying to play all innocent.
Oh yeah. No, she was a snake for sure. Snake in the grass. And then, basically because of that, and then we had other projects we had to wrap up before we started this one, because we were actually going to wholesale it or whatever. We're going to wholesale it. We didn't start until mid-August, right?
Yeah. Cause then we had another partner. Yeah, because we had a partner we were going to work on it with, because they had a crew, and then they completely fucked us.
Yeah, they screwed us over on that one hardcore. So, we waited 2 months to start it because we're like, well, we'll just do this other project right now, squeeze that one in. We won't start this one, which we know is bigger, because they're going to come in and do it. We're going to partner, split the profits, and that did not pay off one bit. So, yeah. Good times. So, but it's all good. It's all cleaned up. It's nice. So we'll hopefully get listed this week and get a nice profit on it and pull all of our cash out, because we had to spend a lot more money on this one than we'd hoped, just because little things when you hold the property for 8 months, shit can happen. I don't know, the air conditioning can break, and that's $5,000.
Yeah.
And so we had a few things we had to uncover on this one, and these people were, there was just some hidden surprises that I feel like they created for us why they lived there before we evicted them. But anyhow, we got through it all. It looks way better, smells way better. That was a big problem with the house. It was so gross. But
they did leave us with a freezer full of rotting meat and a jar full of marijuana. The whole house smelled like pot and dead things. And
pee and urine and weird stuff. So we dealt with a few things on it, but ultimately it's a great property. I wish we could have listed it earlier this year, because man, we would have made so much money on this one. But just with where interest rates are, it's obviously the price, we can't demand the high price point we thought we could. or we wanted to earlier. But it is, I'm still hopeful on it because it is a great house hack. And today, if you're going to buy a house with a high interest rate, you can house hack it. You're doing all right, because this one you can get, I would say $1,200 in extra income from the apartment that is on the lot that you can legally rent out. So that's super helpful for any potential buyer. Because I mean, think about it, if your budget was, say, we'll probably list this thing around 500. If your budget was 500 like 3-4 months ago, but you can't afford that anymore, this helps you afford it.
It does, yeah. I mean, that would take a huge chunk out of it, and I mean, even better yet, young couple, something wants to buy it. This is the really next level move. Young couple buys it. They live in the apartment. They rent out the big house for like $2,500 to $3,000, maybe even. And now you're really balling because you're living for free at that point, and you have a nice asset in an A-class neighborhood.
Yep, exactly. Really nice asset that you can rent out in the future as a duplex or keep or do whatever you want to do with it. I mean, it's a great setup. The thing that the trick will be is help making sure to convey that to the right buyer's agent so that they can convey that to their seller, which is always the tricky thing. Like when we're dealing one-on-one with investors on the off-market thing, you're talking with your buyer, generally speaking, right? And you're marketing to your buyer. And with the agents, you're always talking through somebody, which makes it challenging if you're trying to convey benefits to somebody. Like, and before you jump in, I will try to convey this. I'm doing a listing right now. It was a deal that we had that we were going to pay cash for. We chose to list it. I listed it for him. And I had an offer signed around on this thing, signed, given to us. And I reviewed it and I was like, it was like $20,000 under asking. And then they wanted only $3,000 towards the buyer's closing costs. I was like, how about this? I will pay $9,000 towards your buyer's closing costs. And then on top of that, I should say, then you pay full price, which was a really reasonable offer. And then the agent said, well, we just can't afford the full price offer. And I said, do you understand what I'm trying to do here? I'm giving you enough money to buy your payment down for your buyer. And I gave her a screenshot of the calculator. I was like, see how much this is, like $200 cheaper for your buyer a month? And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll see if that works. And then she came back and she's like, well, we'll pay full price, but we actually need it was something stupid, like $18,000 in seller pays on a $225,000 house. Oh, and I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, my buyer doesn't quite have enough for the down payment. I was like, you never had that. Your buyer couldn't afford this house regardless. So just the confusion on how to write an offer and not realizing their buyer couldn't even come up with 3% down anyway. So not only did they need they needed all the buy down, but they also needed the down payment covered.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, no, it's not that kind of buyer's market yet. Anyhow, I digress.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, it's just always challenging like that. But you can say, it's easier with investors because you talk to them yourself. I don't know, man. Talking to investors right now has been like talking to a pile of bricks for the most part.
It is, but you're at least talking to the potential buyer directly, and you're like, hey, you get it that this is like $1,200 unit right here. And they're like, yeah, I get that. You're like, okay, so let's work on the math together. And they might still back out because they are a brick wall and they're complaining about everything. But
Yeah. With this one, though, I mean, I was thinking about this earlier today. We might want to get another realtor to list it, just one of the ones that has a lot of viewership on their leads. They have a marketing plan just because of that. I feel like if it gets in front of more people and that market is spread appropriately, even if we have to pay full commissions, I feel like the chances of finding people to understand that and want to pay for it are significant.
Right. Yeah. You cast a broader net. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, because I guess overall it would cost us an extra 7.5 in commissions probably. Because we pay 1.5 for you because you have your small commission which you may or may not take, and then you have your
we wouldn't pay that much. I mean, we'd end up paying we'd probably end up negotiating just a full commission, right? If you're going to go with a high end realtor like that, you're going to pay a full 6, and right now, we pay typically 4 total.
Oh, sorry, I meant 7,500, which would be 1.5%. Onyx is $500,000.
Yeah. There you go. So we're on the same page.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Phone call from Open Door.
Oh, dude, sell me some houses.
Yeah, they probably want. Didn't they go bankrupt? I thought they did.
I know.
So we get that one. sorted out here, and then after that we'll be out of renos for a bit. And I mean, we're
No, not
kind of in the
technically.
zone right
We
now.
still have one vacant property we need to reno, one of our tiny homes, and then we have
A
one in
little
Coeur
heroin
d'Alene.
house.
Yeah, the heroin house. Yeah, exactly. We got the heroin house, and then we have one out in Coeur d'Alene that hopefully will close in the next month that we would need to renovate, and that would be
Yeah.
probably a buy and hold, potentially a flip. And then we have one. I don't want. It's a little teaser, but we have another one that might be a reno if we decide to keep it. That came back alive. I don't want to go anymore because I want it to evolve a little bit. But man,
Oh my
this is an
God.
exciting one. It's a juicy one.
Yeah. This is exciting. So yeah, we'll talk about this one in 2 weeks more as it sort of comes together. But very much the long story short is we had a seller like early
No,
2021.
don't share it. Don't.
No,
It's
I'm
the juicy
gonna give the
details.
basic. I'm gonna give the
Okay.
basic. I'm not gonna give all the juice deal. I'm gonna give the basic story. Early 2021, we had a seller back out the day before closing for no real reason, and I don't know, being nice guys or whatever. We said that's fine, but you need to sign this agreement that if you try to sell the house anytime in the next 5 years, we have first right of refusal.
Mhm.
And it has to honor the agreement that we had in place right now. And she
The
agreed,
current
went
PSA.
and recorded the document. And anyway, I'm going to leave this with a cliffhanger. We got a call from a lawyer that the lady has died and the house is going into probate. And so we have first right of refusal on
Yes.
this freaking house.
Yeah.
And it's going to be super weird.
It is going to be super weird. I hope in the next week or two we have enough more information. We got to work with this lawyer, and I'm sure we'll get into some weird, legal stuff with it, but it'll be fun. I hope, because it was, I don't want to say it was the deal of the year last year, but it was going to be a cool deal. It was just going to be a good, solid deal, for us last year.
It was probably going to be the deal of the year.
And that was that at the time when we didn't, because I ran that appointment. Was that the time we didn't have an acquisition manager?
We didn't. I mean,
because I was. That's why I ran the appointment. I remember that.
Yeah, because we let go our first one, and we had Ricardo, who was doing a lot of our appointment setting. But I actually remember that lead came in. I think you and I were on a meeting. It was like a Sunday.
It was a Sunday.
Yeah,
you were like, we got a text. We had a website lead. And you're like, you want to call him? I was like, I'll call him. We called him, and then that call was on the Real Deals podcast. Remember that?
It was.
Yeah, Elliot was like, and he was kind of talking shit. He's like, "Oh, I bet you guys didn't close that one." You're like, "Actually, we did lock it up. We didn't close it though."
Yeah, we didn't close it purely because we decided to let him off the hook. But and also we shouldn't laugh that this lady died, but she wasn't.
No, we're not laughing about that. The situation we'll have to run down. We'll run it down another episode when we have time. It was, man, that was a banger. That was a story. This whole deal from the beginning. The weird phone calls, the weird girlfriend situation. Wow. It was a real banger.
There's all sorts of stuff. So we'll dive into that in 2 weeks on our next banter episode. But oh my God, I'm super excited because that's one of my favorite ones to tell people too, is all the nonsense that went on in that. That's like one of those stories that you tell people and they're like, no shit.
You're like that really happens? Yes, it does.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
So anyway, cool. All right. Well, anything else, Dan? Any new exciting things?
No, just welcoming you back to the United States. You're malaria free. I'm happy about that we know of. It sounded like you had some clean drinking water while abroad, so good for you. Yeah. No Hep C, which is also another one of those diseases that always gives and never goes away. I didn't assume you'd get that. But I'm just rattling off diseases that kill people.
Isn't that basically an STD at this point? Hep C.
Yeah,
or you get that from like unprotected anal sex.
Or habitual drug users, sharing needles. I don't know what you do, man. I don't know. No, man, everything's good. We're just excited to have you back and excited to keep things going. It's always good to be back in the same state, in the same city.
So. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all good, but. Cool. Well, right on. Well, thanks for listening, guys. Just so you guys know what the sort of pattern is going to be, we are quickly approaching our 1-year anniversary of doing the Collecting Keys podcast. Nice. And we are slightly shifting the pattern of what the show is going to look like, where basically every other week we will do a banter style episode where we talk about updates on the business, what we're doing, how our stuff's going, different things that we're going to the changing market. We'll be alternating those Wednesday podcasts with interviews with different people and personalities, kind of like we had over the last month. We're going to be focusing mostly on people that I would say are entrepreneurs or like interesting people in the space that are kind of doing like big things or interesting things, as opposed to, I don't know, I hate how in some of these podcasts you end up with like, here's how this rich guy who, was a freaking doctor and making $500,000 a year, how they're now worth $20 million. And it only took them 3 years. Wow. Right. It's like, well,
all the exceptions.
Kind of yeah. And then their story is like, well, I decided I was going to syndicate apartments. I just talked to all my rich doctor friends and said, here, you just give me a bunch of money and we'll go buy all this bullshit, which is not a good story, but that is abundant and it drives me crazy because it's not realistic of the circumstance that exists for more people. And it really isn't that interesting either.
Absolutely. It's the same story over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. So we have some good ones lined up that we're going to be recording here for the next little bit. Super excited for those. If you have anyone that you would like us to interview and reach out to, you think would be cool, please shoot us a DM and we'd appreciate that. But anyways, guys, if you want to follow us on social media, that would be great. You can find me at Mike_invest and Dan at InvestorMan Dan. Besides that, please go and subscribe to this podcast. Leave us a 5-star review and share it with anyone who you think would be interested or has any interest in real estate investing or just maybe likes occasionally good banter. That's really helps us grow the show. Besides that, if you wanted to learn from us and learn how to start your own investment business, which is carbon copy of how ours is, go to the instantinvestorprogram.com. We actually have some new programs in that we're going to be launching here very soon. So go ahead and check that out. And it's not live on that website yet, but if you go and you schedule a call with it, we can tell you about them. So pretty exciting stuff. That was going to be awesome. So aside from that, Dan, go ahead and send us off. It's been a while since you've had a shitty send-off from us.
Dude, I don't have a shitty send-off. Like, dang it. I should have thought of something really cool, like can the editors put in some like African like drum music as we send off? Maybe that'll be the send off.
That sounds like cultural appropriation. We're not even going to go there.
Oh, come on. All right. Well, I'll see you guys next week. I got to shut down.
All right. See you guys next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.